well, thank you.
Come in.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
How's it been?
Really good. Hi Ben, thank you for coming down.
Pleasure.
Really excited to talk to you. This is the online chef. That's what I've called him now. I've named him the online chef. He's the most engaged man online with food. Obviously started out, went to college or uni, studying food. But I want to just take it back. Like, what was your childhood like? Where are you from?
So grew up in Hertfordshire, so kind of out of town and very much a country boy in that sense. Loved the outdoors, grew up sort of around big open fields and stuff like that. So that was like home. But I, from a very young age, had a real passion for food. Not from a foodie family as such, like a professional foodie family, but everything was cooked from scratch, and therefore I think the whole family sort of centred around the kitchen and what was going on there. So it was kind of, that was home. Home was the kitchen.
Have you got any inspirations from your childhood in terms of cooking? Like, was there something or someone you saw that made you go, oh, that's a light bulb moment for me?
I think really in the early days it was people like Jamie Oliver, because I think he was breaking the mould of a stuffy sort of TV chef, and he was just throwing out great food and making it really accessible. I think like fast forward 20 years and food is now more normalised, more accessible, it's more fun. And I think that's, for me, where the penny dropped, is like, it can be as much fun of the actual cooking is the hosting. And food is a catalyst to bring people together. And he was the first person I think really you saw do that, with him hanging out with his mates and cooking up great food effortlessly.
So can you just explain to everybody, that maybe some people that don't know exactly what you're doing, just give us a snapshot of what it is Ben does?
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders of Sorted Food, which is essentially a global social media cooking brand, but it's a community. It's millions of people all around the world who have a passion for food, and our job really is to distill everything we know, everything we can extract from other amazing experts and chefs all over the world, and distill it down into something that just turns more people into awesome home cooks. But food for us is just the catalyst. The real backbone to everything we do is the fact that it's a friendship, and it's the friendship of the four of us you see on screen, but also the wider community, everyone we meet. It's just open arms and super inclusive.
So when did the penny drop for you to say this is going to be a career?
I'd love to say I could pinpoint a moment. I think we've been on YouTube for 13 years, and it's been a very gradual journey. In 13 years we've never gone viral, but we have constantly grown and built this audience. I think there was a moment in probably the first couple of years where we were doing other jobs, proper jobs, to sustain this thing that we were trying to build.
What jobs are they?
So I was working in kitchens, hotels, restaurants, evenings, weekends, some agency, catering work, anything that paid in the short term, so that Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, we could play really with this idea of sorted food. And at the time, it was just an idea, it was just a playground. But bit by bit, we realised people were enjoying it. People were feeding into the community and giving us as much input as we were giving them content. And then we were like, actually, there's something here, and how do we make it more of a focus for us and the Monday to Friday rather than the evening and weekend bit.
Did you set out and say this is going to be our plan, and it's all gone that way swimmingly well, or has it deviated from where you initially thought it was and gone to somewhere where you didn't quite know it was going to go to?
Lots of twists and turns. I think often people look at the journey of where we started and where we are, and they draw a lovely straight line and they think, what a success. It's never like that. You zigzag your way from A to B, and we've made decisions that in hindsight we might not have done, but actually that's kind of what helps you, and you learn from, and you build a team, and you make it more and more possible. And I think building out a team has enabled us to delve into ideas that perhaps we wouldn't have tried ourselves. And I think it's never easy, but we've been doing it for 13 years, and I don't think I can call it work, because it doesn't fit.
That has to be the best place to
honestly, find a passion that you love, and then get out of bed every morning and want to do it to make a difference. And that's the privileged position we're in, is we still hang out with our best mates. We've known them for 24 years since we went to school together, and we are just creating food and sharing that passion with more people to try and get other people to improve their relationship with food.
How many's in your team? Just give us a little idea of what your team looks like so someone can understand the scale of the operation.
Yeah, so right now we're looking at 24 people full-time, and that spans, a production team, a food team, a social team, a product and tech team who are working tirelessly behind the scenes to make the tools, the app that we have that helps people in kitchens cook midweek. They're building that out. So 24 full-time.
So have you got many live shows going on? Obviously COVID would have hit you guys a little bit in terms of live shows and getting out and touching people, feeling people.
Yeah, it's interesting. We live online, and I think you sometimes forget when you have thousands, millions of people watching and comments and likes, and you forget they are real people engaging with content, and then a proportion of that are going out and buying ingredients and cooking up, kind of inspired by what you do, and you forget that. And I think lockdown especially, we sort of closed our studio doors, and we very much made content in our little bubble and then put it out to the world, and people became more interested in food because they were at home and had more time. I think right now we're starting to flip that. We're opening the studio doors again. We've got an amazing space in East London, and it really is. Down there, man. Yeah, but honestly, we will feed you whenever you want. Like food and drink, that is our baby, and we love feeding people. We're feeders. So
it's bulking season. I'll be down there. Don't worry about that. Do you know what? I'm keen to get an understanding, because obviously you guys live online. Just like what's you and your team's relationship with social media? We've been brought together by We Are 8.
Yep.
So I'm really keen to understand that relationship, because it can be sometimes negative, like you talked about comments, but it also can be really, really positive at times.
We've always been very lucky. I think we found this wonderful corner of the internet that has been super positive, and I think you get back what you put out, and we're always super open, inclusive, and the conversation is around food. Everyone has an opinion on food. There's no doubt about that. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know anything that anybody else doesn't. Everyone has an opinion on food. So it's, in that sense, it's a really generally positive place. But I would say, to add to that, you've got to know when to curate it and when to let what is now an amazing community, let them have their own space to engage with each other. And we get all of our ideas from the comments, from the community, and then all we do, almost like a conductor, is take some of those best bits and craft it in a way that we know how to make content, and then republish it. Not because that's the answer, but that flips the next question. Yeah.
Do you tell the people making the comments that we've just seen an idea there, we've used that as part of it?
Yeah. So we're using those comments in the content, and people know that the ideas have come from them. In the early days, it was easy, because there were only 12 comments. Now there's a lot more. You get a feel for what people want, and essentially we love our jobs, but we're just puppets. And actually it's the people watching, the community around the world, who are kind of pulling our strings, and we're creating content with them and for them.
It's the best place to be, definitely. So we've talked about how far you guys have come in a 13-year span. What has been some of the big highs, and also what have been some of the lows that you go, we panicked a little bit then, but we got through it?
Well, I think pivoting during lockdown is an obvious one. I think it hit everyone. It's like, what do you do? What do you change? A lot of our content before that was the chance to travel and be inspired by food. Use food as an excuse to travel, and you can go anywhere in the world. And if you play music and you cook or eat, you can communicate. You don't have to speak the same language, but those things, like music, football, food, and play football, those things connect people, and you don't have to speak the same language. And all of a sudden, we couldn't do the travel part, but we very quickly realised we have got an audience on social media in every country, and they know far more about their own cuisine than we could ever dream of. So it kind of, at first, it was that knee-jerk reaction, oh dear, what next? We're stuck. Was flipped into a positive, which became, actually, they know better than us anyway. So how do we bring them on board, and more of the live streaming and live content that gets immediate feedback into how we cook and how we shape the food that we do.
You mentioned having a worldwide footprint there. Where's your favourite place to go for food? For someone that knows food worldwide.
Favourite cuisine or favourite city? I mean,
can be both.
We've been very, very lucky to be able to travel, but somewhere like Tokyo is an amazing food destination.
Why?
The people behind the food and the passion and the respect they have for food. And I would say that's something that maybe in the UK, and I'm being like huge brushstrokes, but we've almost lost respect for food. You go to somewhere like Tokyo and they are respecting to the nth degree. If there's no such thing as food waste.
Do they insure their
It's hugely
hands? Do they
balanced.
insure their hands? The top guys who make the sushi and things like that, yeah?
Yeah, and they train for so long to make it perfect. And one person will perfect one job, whereas and we're guilty of it too. We're kind of jack of all trades. We do a little bit of everything, and sort of dip our toes in the water and be inspired by it, and then take our twist on it. But a respect for food and understanding where our food comes from. I think in Tokyo, I saw it more than anywhere else.
Don't be a jack of all trades, master of none. That's the motto. Where else have you been? I'd like somewhere else as well.
So we've done a lot in the US, and I think for that it was more digging beneath the surface and finding the food producers. Again, it comes down to people, the people behind the food. Some amazing sort of farm-to-table restaurants, some amazing producers from mead companies where they're nursing hives and bees and bringing sort of mead back. So it's not always the cliche American fast food that we might immediately jump to.
That's what I jumped to.
And we did too.
Yeah.
And I think everyone does. And on social media, it performs really well. So it's very easy to fall into that trap. But you've actually got to scratch beneath the surface and find the people who are super passionate. And that unlocks everything.
Well, on this journey in food, and obviously you've been well travelled and you meet and speak to a lot of people digitally as well. What's the best bit of advice that you've had that has really impacted the business?
So we actually almost rewrote the rules for travel, the way we like to travel, and it was 3 very simple rules. We call them game changers, but 3 rules, and it is never go anywhere unless it's been recommended by a local. And by that, I mean, speak to the person behind the bar, speak to the concierge at the hotel, speak to the taxi driver that picks you up from the airport, speak to the locals, because they know where the good stuff is. Sometimes they'll tell you, oh, you've got to go and see this, and it is the top 10 tourist reasons why you're there, and it's kind of why you go to a city maybe. But they'll also tell you where they go and where their family goes. And I think that's where you begin to get underneath like the skin of a city. So go to places that are recommended by locals and say yes. And the number of times we've kind of walked up to a place because it's been recommended, and we've been too quick to judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
Oh, it doesn't look great. Should we go to that one over there? No, just say yes and go in, because you never know what's behind that door. That you walk into a restaurant, a bar, a market, whatever, and follow local recommendations, and then just say yes. Providing it's safe to do so, say yes, and we've got ourselves into amazing places because of that. And the third one is pass it on. Try and do something that passes that on to the community. Whether you pay it forward so that you've had the most amazing meal, leave one for someone else. We try to do that on the channel, or pass it on might just be, become, in our instance, a megaphone for the voice and the message that they're trying to do. So we might spend some time in a food bank or a kitchen that is supporting a local community or an education facility. We try to do something that passes on the fact that we have the best job in the world and we are so lucky for that. But what can we do that's good and positive while we're there? And those 3 rules unlocks incredible food experiences.
And you just mentioned food banks there. I think in time like we are in now, in an economic crisis, and that's where something like We Are Rate, I think, comes into its own. How important, for the first part of the question is, do you think a food bank is? But also, how can we impact food banks for positive impact?
Yeah, I think I know they are hugely important. I think it's a sad state of affairs. It's got to that stage where people require them, but they are super important at the moment. I think what the whole food sphere is really challenging. Like, there are so many complex issues in the food systems. We're trying to talk about things that are good for the planet, that are good for our own bodies and minds and nutrition. We're talking about living on a budget. We are not trained. You have an interest in food. I have an interest in food. We were not given this information in our education on how to deal with all these complex issues. But I think most people going through education, if they don't choose it as a career, they're not taught to cook. They might get snippets of food nutrition and education, but they're not taught on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday when you get home from work, what are you cooking? We're not taught that. And we're not taught how to walk into a supermarket or a market and pick the right ingredients based on what's right for the planet, what's right for the communities who might have brought that to that place, what's right for our bodies. Like, there's so many issues. I feel like that's the bit that somehow needs fixing, because if you can fix that, there'll probably be less need for the food banks. The problem is, until you fix the big, those food banks are so important.
So what is your purpose then? We're talking about some serious issues there like that. So what would be your purpose or your business's purpose going forward?
We're just a group of mates. We're just hanging out and having fun with food. And I think the fun and the joy that you can bring around food is really important, because otherwise it does become very doom and gloom. That said, 13 years on, we've got an amazing community. What can we do with that community? The power of literally a movement of people who are passionate around food. What can we do that makes a difference? And I think the thing that we're really focused on and think is really important is food waste. The fact that a third of the food that's produced goes to waste. And most of that happens in our homes. We buy it, we take it home, and for whatever reason we don't know what to do with it, we don't know what to do with the leftovers, we're not geared up with the skills to know how to improv in the kitchen, food gets wasted. And I think that is probably, if we could solve that, I think a lot of other problems would go away with it.
Because you think about like all of these fast food chains and stuff, they must have so much food that goes out the back door that these food banks could do with, or going into the communities and just unloading that food into communities. People will come out with their hands out 100%.
We think hospitality, retail, farm gates, these are really big problems. What I find fascinating is it's still the majority of food waste happens in the home, and that's not anyone's fault. You know, we're not taught how to cook. We're not armed with the skills to adapt recipes. We just follow recipes. And you're a foodie, and you probably have favourite recipes you follow. When you do that, you go and buy the ingredients. We all shop by recipe, but if the recipe calls for 100 millilitres of sour cream, you have to buy 150. So you use 100, 50 goes in the fridge.
True,
you haven't got the skills to do anything with that.
Yeah, I've got one recipe and that's it. That's where the 50's going.
Yeah.
And I've got 100 left.
And a week later, it's got a fur coat. You throw it out. 50 grams. It's not a problem, but it is a third of what you bought, and we waste a third of all food. And it's like it just scales in the home. So for us, that's our purpose. How do we save people money by avoiding food waste?
That's mad, isn't it? What about if you ordered food together with neighbours?
Cooperatives and kind of bulk buying as groups of people is great. Or what we've started doing is bulking recipes together. It's very difficult to cook one recipe and not have any food waste. We now write recipes as a pack, as a bundle that smartly combine the recipes so that all the fresh food gets used up. So the other 50 grams of your sour cream gets used over here, or you buy cabbage and use half of it there and half of it here, and so all the fresh food gets used up over a pack of recipes.
Yeah, but that's the thing we have problems in my house with, is like, if you don't plan a whole week's of food, which we don't, you end up having to go day to day, and it's a struggle, it's stress. And so then you can never actually plan out your food in terms of waste.
And what do you do when you cook day by day? You cook by mood. What am I in the mood for? And that's an emotive thing that we all do. And sometimes you just go, oh, I really fancy X, Y, or Z.
Chicken
all the time. and you lead down that path, and actually, you're right, without a plan, you don't shop properly. So you need to plan better, you need to shop better, and that will enable you to cook better.
If you could help bring planning and food into the culture, I think that's a big step. It's just getting hooked to do that, isn't it?
Making it habitual. Nobody likes to do it, but it's the chore that people don't enjoy. Most people, when they start doing it, quite enjoy cooking. Everybody enjoys eating. Nobody likes the planning. Nobody really likes the shopping. Up and down the aisles, trying to find inspiration. You've forgotten something, you're going back for something else. Like, that's the bit people don't like. We need to go back down to the grassroots and teach people to cook.
So you've got a great business going on, obviously very busy. How do you find balance in life? Because I struggle with that at the moment. I'm really trying to make an effort this year to find good balance between family and business. How do you do that?
Our business is quite unique because it is a business and we work super hard on it, but it's also the centre of that is 4 founders, and we're friends, and we've known each other for 24 years. And we wholly understand each other to the point we can finish each other's sentences, but also knowing when each other, across 13 years, different people for different, lifestyles, weddings, kids, all that kind of stuff. You need different time to yourself, to family, to completely stop, unwind and travel and go and be inspired or recharged. That's fine, because we know and we trust, as a very core friendship, how important that is. And I think just being super honest and open, and running a business with friends has its ups and downs, of course. We don't all agree, that's kind of healthy.
Lots of arguments, healthy arguments.
Not lots,
discussions,
but useful arguments, but nothing that can ever not be unpicked or resolved with a drink after work kind of thing. Like, it's where the idea started, literally around a pub table, and it's still our holy grail of a place where when we don't agree on something, and that happens, of course,
let's go for a drink.
we find the best solution, we do it, and then we put aside the differences and we go and have a drink, and just iron it all out again.
I love that. So I saw you come with a bag. Have you got?
Yes. So I brought one thing, a physical thing that means a lot to me. It's. I'll show you. It's given we live in a world of social media.
A book.
It's our very first cookbook.
Wow. From
13 years ago, and it's bizarre sometimes because I think we only printed 10,000 of these. So, a relatively small number, given the millions of people we reach online in a digital space. But there's something very tangible about a book. That's our first book, by all means, have a look. But it's a snapshot in time. It's printed, it won't change. But for us, all the journey, the community, and the positive influence we can now have kind of stemmed from that. And it captures the friendship, it captures the people, it captures food, which looking back makes us chuckle. The photography, the recipes, our style has changed so much in 13 years. We've grown, haircuts are just as bad, but it's kind of like that was a snapshot in time. And there's something very tangible about a book.
Where are you?
There you go.
Oh, good. Oh, nice.
Not changed a lot, worryingly.
I'm getting hungrier looking at this book, though. I've got to be honest. I'm getting hungrier and hungrier.
And it's amazing how far a friendship has come, and a journey has come, and ultimately we're still doing exactly the same things we were on day one, hanging out and cooking great food and being super positive and inclusive about that. But we've learned so much, and we now know what impact that has on our audience.
What's that feeling about, just before we go, like having a book, like having that physical that is in a shop, is being sold somewhere, that you guys have created?
I think when we started the business, we knew we wanted to make a difference, and we didn't have a clue what that meant or on what scale, or we didn't put any metrics to it or anything. We just wanted to make a difference. And it's the thought, and that was the first example, and there's been so many since of physical examples, whether it's more cookbooks, events, getting people in a room, supper clubs, so many opportunities to do physical things, or digital content that people turn into physical things at home, that is making a small difference. And I don't know how you measure that, but that's what we set out to do. We're on that journey. We're not there yet by any means, but something tangible that can help people on their journey with food. And everyone has a different relationship with food, but how can we help a little bit? And I say we, it's not the four of us, it's the millions around the world that is Sorted Food. It's that community. How can that community help people on that journey?
So Sorted Food, if you could fast forward 5-10 years, what would be the goal to be where you guys get to? As my final question.
Wow. I would love to be in a place where people in their weekly routines, whether they are thinking breakfast, lunch, dinner, whether they're on their own and throwing together a quick supper, or they've got friends coming over for dinner, or they're travelling the world and they're seeking out the best food, I'd love for them to think, I wonder what Sorted would do and how they can help. Because it's not our answer, it's the collective answer, it's the movement. And I think it kind of curates itself. It's trusted, it's authentic, it's real, and it self-curates. The good stuff filters to the top, and I would love it for people just to think, I wonder what Sorted Food would do here, because they trust that association and opinion on food. And it's not an answer to food, it's just a take on it.
Oh, great. It's a great way to finish. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Love what you guys are doing.
It's amazing.
I'm going to be coming dropping by soon.
Honestly, open doors.
All right, Vulcan
You're very
season
welcome.
and all that. So listen, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.